Uh, yeah, namaste. Uh, my presentation today is on sustainable aquaculture and kind of species system diversification. I'll present a few examples from Asia, especially China, Thailand, and other countries. Mostly how these systems are transforming into more sustainable farming systems. So I will outline the aquaculture status globally. I think it's not much relevant now. And also focus on some of the eco-friendly farming practices, particularly on shrimp in Thailand, with an eye on the outlook for future. So as we all know, aquaculture is the fastest growing food production sector and also the most diverse farming system. So in terms of the number of species and also the farming systems and also the environments in which the fish are farmed. And we know the human population boom and the requirement of aquaculture product. We are looking for at least over 100 million tons to be produced in the near future by 2025, going by the estimates of UN and also the FAO. So this is a big task for us and produce aquaculture products or food for humanity. And our task is a big challenging task. We are happy that Asia is a leader in this production. The Asia Pacific region contributes almost 90% of the total global aquaculture production of 80 million tons. And the countries leading are China on the top, contributing to more than 60% of the production of the global aquaculture production, and far distantly followed by India with 7%, Indonesia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, then Japan, Korea, and all those countries with the top 10. The major species are the shellfish, the shrimp, shellfish, and also finfish like carps, which are the leading contributors. And looking at the diversity of aquaculture, we know aquaculture is a diverse industry, but at the same time it is less diverse compared to the capture fisheries. You know, in capture fisheries we have about more than 2,000 species involved, but in aquaculture as of now, with the latest estimates, we have about 600 species globally contributing to aquaculture production. And in the last 10 years, there has been a big leap, like by about 30% increase in the number of species that we farm. And you know, most of these species may be coming from China, the increasing number of species. So what species dominate? What groups dominate? You know, finfishers dominate in this diversity with more than 350 or 369 species contributing, followed by mollusks, then 18%, crustaceans 9%, invertebrates 2%, algae 7%, and amphibians and reptiles. So these are the species groups that contribute to global aquaculture. You can see the aquatic algae, 40 species contribute to aquaculture in this group, but I don't know if we have in India, if we have any of these species represented. That's a big challenge again for Indian aquaculture. And this is a fact, like I was listening to Mr. Ramohan's speech, the contribution of Vanami, almost 98% production. And this is a big problem now. Even though we have a diverse industry, most of our production globally comes from very few species. For example, the finfish species, we have only 27 species contributing to 90% of the total global finfish production. This is again an alarming fact. We have the carps, tilapia, and other species. And when we come to the crustaceans, the diversity is still coming down. We have the shrimp contributing to more than 50%, the vanami, and then crayfish, the Chinese crab, black tiger shrimp, and the freshwater prawns. So the diversity is still going down in that case. And among the mollusks, we have the oysters and the Japanese carpet shell and scallops forming the major production categories worldwide. So our species in India is too far way low. So what are the strategies for increasing the diversification? So the answer is simple, looks simple. You increase the number of species to be farmed, you diversify the systems to be more environment friendly or more productive systems or intensive systems, whatever, and also expand the aquaculture to newer environments, more diverse environments. So it's very simple to say this, but the answer, the solutions may not be that simple. And also better governance is also important. We need to have a better governance structure in the aquaculture, especially in the developing countries, and better regulated industry, or I think MPDA has a lot of regulations in place, and Coastal Aquaculture Authority and national research centers like SIBA, SIFA, and all those institutions have their own contribution in getting good governance for the aquaculture sector. So the major problem is what I mentioned is in diversity is that we have a few species contributing too much for the production share. And how to improve this is we have to think in terms of improving the productivity, maybe by intensifying, by genetic selection, genetic improvement, and also by approaching the native species, the indigenous species. Many of these native species have potential, especially in India, as in other parts of Asia. So we need to improve those species and standardize their farming conditions. So this is a classic case of genetic improvement. We want to do genetic improvement, but if you compare the agriculture crops and also the livestock, where do we stand in the case of aquatic farm stocks? The genetic improvement programs are progressing far slower, and our achievement is limited to very few species like the salmons and the tilapia and a few other species. So we still have no much improvement happening, but I'm happy that a lot of research is happening in other parts of the world, including in India. So increasing diversity by intensifying or improving productivity by intensifying the system. But we know that the classic problem with intensive aquaculture, so aquaculture globally is blamed for a lot of things, for pollution, even for climate change. So a lot of allegations, a lot of problems against intensive aquaculture. So the effluents, particularly the effluents discharged to the surroundings, then the productivity, increased productivity in the water bodies, in the environment, and also spread of diseases, and even contribution to the greenhouse gases, contribution to the climate change. So a lot of things, anything you can blame on aquaculture. So in that situation, our major challenge is to produce more food, more aquaculture produce, but at the same time do this in a sustainable manner. So this is the greatest challenge we are facing while approaching the aquaculture production. So what is sustainable aquaculture is a big thing. So I'm just looking at how aquaculture can become competent. So as an industry or a business enterprise, as a farming enterprise, how aquaculture can be competitive, a more competitive industry. So we should have low capital investment, we should have a proven technology, so we should follow good management practices, we should aim for species with high productivity, high growth rate, fast growth rate, and the energy consumption should be low, and the human resources we invest should be very efficient, they should be technically skilled, and the wages should be lower, the climate should be favorable, market demand should be there, and also the economy of scale. So we should produce in bulk to get more profit or more food production. So this is an ideal condition. So in that case, we can say the aquaculture could be kind of eco-friendly, sustainable, energy efficient, organic, or whatever. So I was curious to find this categorization of the level of industrialization in farming systems. You know, as the level of industrialization goes up, the risk may also go up. But this one, you can see that with the the groups like the carbs, the industrialization is still low, and the risk is also a bit a medium level. It's not so high. And in fact, these groups, the carp, seaweed, oysters, mussels, clams, scallops, and all these are the future, are the species for the future still. They are already farmed in large scale, and we should still continue to do this and increase its productivity and the production rates. And the extreme example is the salmon. The salmon is highly industrialized sector, and also tilapia is getting much industrialized nowadays, and also the shrimp. So if we even talk about salmonization of the shrimp industry, so this kind of intensification is happening worldwide. So how is the energy intensity in aquaculture operation? The energy intensity may depend on many factors like the species you farm, the feed, how much is the feed that you use, the intensity of operation, the degree of mechanization or the automation that is happening, and also the extent of environmental control. How efficiently you can control the production. As you move up in the industrialization scale, your production is also better controlled. Your productivity is also better controlled. So this is, these are the factors that determine efficiency. So what are the energy efficient systems? So we could say that systems that use lesser resources, that uses a system that uses lower energy consumption, and of course the systems that operate on a 3R principle that we call the reduce, recycle, and reuse. These kind of principles we can adopt in the case of aquaculture production as well. So in this context, we should also look at the success of the Chinese aquaculture industry. We say that China is the leader. So what makes the Chinese aquaculture industry the leader in aquaculture production? China has a long history of aquaculture. Aquaculture said to have originated there far long as the 11th BC. And the industry is highly diverse, and it's a big industry. The size of the industry is too high, too big. And over these years, the decades, there has been a big transformation from the traditional family-based or household-based aquaculture to more industrialized aquaculture. And most of these operations done by the private corporations. So this is a big factor that led to the increasing production in China. I know that over 6 million people are employed in the Chinese farming industry. And the number of species farmed, there are over 150 species are farmed in the Chinese industry. So we can compare with the Indian industry how many species that are farmed in India. And these include the fishes, crustaceans, mollusks, aquatic invertebrates, seaweeds, specifically the carps, tilapia, shrimp, the sea bream, catfish, scallops, oysters, and mussels. So most of these species are farmed in high quantities there. And the industry is also, the systems are also diverse. The polyculture system that is more modernized with a view of, more eco-friendly kind of system that are followed in China. And the recent trends in China is for improved farming systems with a focus on the environment. For example, the polyculture system is improved in the case of, for example, in the case of shrimp, if you include the sea cucumbers as an extractive species. So it takes care of the effluent problem from shrimp farming, intensive shrimp farming. So by that way, they can also intensify the system and also take care of the nutrient loading. And also the rotating carp polyculture with the Chinese mitten crab, which is a freshwater crab, which is very much is a favorite species in China. So this kind of innovations are happening, and in China even there has been a recent trend of demolishing all those farms which are not eco-friendly. So the government is very strong, and they are actually demolishing the farms which they find are not good for the environment. And another example, another feature is the range of products that are value added in the industry in China. A lot of products, the diverse range of products are sold in the markets in China. So this is a big, there is a big domestic market for all the kinds of seafood products. So looking at this, I will have some of the examples that I picked up, but there are many other examples. These are not all, but just a few examples that I thought may be relevant. For example, in the extensive system, this is a classic integrated farming in China. The integration of rice paddy with the fish, particularly the carps, and they also do it with crabs, also do it with freshwater prawn, the macrobrachium species. China has a small macrobrachium species which is called the macrobrachium nipponens, and it's very much in demand and high price than the scampi that we have. So this is a big example of integration. And this one from Bangladesh, where they grow the freshwater prawn, the scampi with rice. They grow the scampi in the trenches in the paddy field, and after rice is harvested, they just fill up the land, and then the prawn gets graze over the whole paddy field, and this is a good system of integration. Similar systems are there in India also, in other parts of the world also, in Vietnam, and this is a good example of integration. And the reservoir farming, the culture-based fisheries in China, where they use the carps, particularly the big head carp, and there is no aerators or no feeding, and they get production like 1 tons per hectare. Whereas in India, the reservoir culture-based fisheries, the maximum production is coming up to maybe 200 kilogram per hectare. So this is almost 5 times production in China. So, and this one, the prawns, the scampi harvested from a reservoir in Kerala. The size, look at the size. I think this may be the biggest size reported ever. The prawn post larvae, the PL, stocked in the reservoir, they grew to almost 750 grams, or more than 750 grams in just 6 months in the reservoir. There is no feeding, there is no aerator, nothing. Just the reservoir is almost maybe kind of 5 to 6 meter deep or more than that. So this is a very good example that we can increase the productivity of the open waters. And this eel farming, the freshwater eel farming in Vietnam is also a low-key activity. It's a local favorite. I think eel is not much favorite in India, but this is an example that can be followed. And the extensive farming of shellfish in China, they have a few species, including the oysters, clams, and mussels. Look at the production, 18 tons per hectare and 81 tons per hectare, the mussels. And let us look at where they are farming, where they farm it. It's just the beach and not the pond. They fertilize the beach area in plots and then just seed the mollusk, this fat. So they grow on their own, and the production is coming up to 18 tons per hectare. And for the mussels, it is 81 tons per hectare. It's a big area that the coastal areas that we also can utilize. And coming to more intensive systems, example is the pond aquaculture in China. This is more than 7 tons per hectare. So the production can go up to 15 tons. But this is a normal production of crucian carp, bighead carp, and also yellow catfish. Yellow catfish is another species. They farm there, and they use aerators and also feeding. This is a very big system. And the cage culture of tilapia in the Vietnamese rivers. This is a big example. I think Kevin has more examples with this. It's still going on. I mean, a lot of things have come down, but still we can find this kind of intensive system. At the same time, it is done at a local family level kind of operation and management. So this is a good example that we should also follow. And the tilapia cage in reservoirs. I know that this photo is not in India or in Asia. I took it from in East Africa, but in the Victoria Lake. But I know that a lot of things happening in India with the support of NFDB and RGCA. in the reservoirs. Just last week, I found in the Kerala reservoir, they had harvested. It's really successful, the cage farming of tilapia in the reservoir. And the intensive aquaculture in the coastal ponds of China, it's a very intensive system. They have the shrimp, also the yellow croaker, and the production of fish is 8 to 10 tons per hectare, and Vanamai is 30 to 75 tons per hectare. So using all sort of aerators, feeding, and it's a highly intensive system. So you can see it's all concrete tanks. And the indoor tanks, indoor shrimp farming in greenhouses in China. Again, this farming is coming up in many parts of Asia. The production they get is about 30 to 50 tons. So very high production they get from this indoor farming system. And again, the super intensive shrimp farms in Indonesia. Again, the smaller concrete tanks where the density is very high and the production is also very high. And another example from Thailand, the sea bass farming. Sea bass farming is well developed, established in Thailand. So this is a sea bass nursery and grow-out farm. It's a kind of bit intensive system. And coming to the open sea, the shallow seas in China, you see the extent of the farming. They grow seaweeds and mussels in a very large area. The mussels up to 81 tons they used to get, and the seaweeds a bit lower production. So this is a big example of utilizing the open ocean, open waters, especially closer to our coastline. There is a lot of potential that we can exploit in mariculture, because India's exploitation of mariculture potential is limited. I think India is working on that now, so we have to look at these systems that can be done. IMTA, the Integrated Multi-Trophic Aquaculture, is something that we should seriously consider, especially in utilizing the offshore or nearshore waters in the open sea. And a lot of things, a lot of improvements coming in the sustainable utilization of feed ingredients. I know Dr. Kevin is leading a big project on improving or replacing the fish meal, and we are really close to that, fully replacing fish meal and fish oil with insect meal or the vegetable oils and vegetable protein. And it should be worthwhile looking at some of the ecosystem-based practices followed in some parts of the world. Especially, I cite an example from Thailand. So many of these shrimp farms in Thailand now are looking forward to working with more environment-friendly and eco-friendly farming systems. So, and also integrating with a few species together rather than doing one species. And this is an example of the RAS system currently in development in Thailand. RAS recirculating system has not been fully standardized for Asia. So it is still not cost effective, still expensive. But we have now a farm currently optimizing this for sea bass in the Asian conditions without too much cost, of course. And then there are a lot of opportunities for marketing, especially the live marketing in Asia. So the major markets for live shrimp or live prawn, it lies in China, Japan and Korea, and also in Singapore, as I hear today. And the live packing of shrimp and giant prawns out of water is a big possibility that we should explore. And looking at this shrimp farming again, you know that shrimp farming is currently under a big transformation. And this picture, a few years ago, we see that the effluents, they are just washing to the surrounding environment after a crop of shrimp. The effluents are just, the sludge is just drained to the outside canal or something to the environment. But now we have systems that use, specialized drainage for sludge and treat them back to the production pond. So this kind of systems are proving that they are beneficial in Thailand. And looking at this shrimp farming industry in Thailand for the past few years, Thailand was the leader in world's largest exporter on shrimp. And then the production has come down during the the APEND or the EMS era. And then now with the new farming strategies, the production is coming back, and Thailand is coming back as a leader in production. The production is gradually coming back. So we are now moving from an antibiotic to a prebiotic era. So we know that the antibiotic production is coming drastically down because of the market pressure, especially for food safety. And many of these smallholder farmers, most of this production is by the small farmers. Almost 80% is from the small-scale producers. But small-scale producers, always they are at a disadvantage. They are not in a level playing field. So what the farming industry in Thailand, they are now making clusters or cooperatives. It's time? Yeah. Yeah. So this is the farming is getting a bit under the cooperatives. There are a big example of cluster farming. So the farmers coming together, and these are some of the examples of the farms that we work with the cooperatives in different provinces. There are farms, they have specialized systems for treating the water treatment in this kind of a recirculating model, where there is the sludge is pumped out, and the sludge is treated, and the water is treated back to the production pond. And what they use, what is the advantage? They get a stable water quality with a lot of interventions, pumping the sludge out, and then treating them in specialized ponds, and treating the water using even mussels or bivalves in the pond so that the water is cleared. And another big advantage is that the live feeds they produce, because a lot of live feed is produced in the system, that makes you benefited from not feeding them for the first 15 days. So the live feed takes care of the job in the first few days. And there are also fermented soybean use for feeding. And this is one example. So I should conclude now with a positive note on the sustainability in Asia. That we need to have new species, and we need to have new systems, new efficient, eco-friendly systems, and also novel marketing strategies for enhancing the production. So I think that's it from me. So thank you very much.